With the help of Hashem, we are learning Megila Daf Tes Zayin. We left off on Daf Tes Vav Amid Beis. We are towards the end of the third widest of lines. Vayehi Kira'os Hamelach. We're going to learn now the 10 reasons given by Tanoim, the additional 2, perhaps later other reasons given by Amoraim as to why did Esther invite Haman to the party. We're going to learn about the in-between story, the relatively unknown story, the events that led to the Balayla Hahu Nada Tashnas HaMelech. What exactly was disturbing the king's sleep? We're going to learn the story with greater details about ultimately how Haman led Mordechai on the king's horse, the story with Haman's daughter, ultimately leading to her death. We're going to learn about the success that Esther had during that feast. The Gemara later is going to make a link between the gifts that Yosef HaTzadik gave his younger brother Binyamin beyond the gifts he gave to all of his other brothers, how that foreshadows the success of Mordechai, and perhaps that sheds light also as to why did Yaakov Avinu give Yosef HaTzadik the Ksoinis HaPasim. We're going to learn some halachas regarding the recitation of the Megillah. For example, that Aseres b'nei Haman tzarech lemimrinhu b'neshima achas, and we'll speak out this whole concept that Shemea Ko'ena is regarding the general din of reading the Megillah. Does the neshima achas halacha also, is that fulfilled by listening, or for that you yourself have to say it? We're going to learn the Tosfos on this halacha that you have to say the 10 sons of Haman b'neshima achas. We're going to have some halachas regarding the sirtut, the din that we have to etch lines into the parchment, and that is something that not only applies to Chamesh Chomshei Torah, but it applies, as we will learn, to Megillas Esther as well. And just before we begin, I was just thinking that the pasuk that we had from Yeshayahu, Vayemahu Yeh Hashem tzavakes lateres tzvi uletzefiras tifara, and the Gemara was telling us that to merit the kesed, it's not only enough this level and that level, but we went through many really various midas. Perhaps that's the 7 midas, that there has to be a lot of inner work for a person to merit the kesed of the Torah. L'chayra, this is connected to the limud of Agadata, that when we learn Agadata and we're teaching, but when we're trying to understand what's the inner message of all of these stories, etc., for that we have to be zoich, and part of that has to do with how much of a inner avodah. The more that we work within ourselves, then the more worthy we are to be more enlightened. So let's go by it. It says in the Megillah, Vayehi Kira'os Hamelach es Esther HaMalka, that it was that when she finally entered that chamber, right, Asher the Pshat, Asher Loi Kados, because she was not invited to go in there. She was also at the end of her 3rd day fast, so Amar Rabbi Yechanan, that Gimel Malachei Hashadas, there were 3 ministering angels, Nistamnu La Ba'oisasha, that were there ready to help her at that moment. One lifted up her neck. Pshat, she was fasting, not Yom Kippur 25 hours, 26 hours. She was fasting for 72 hours. So she didn't have koyach to stand upright. So one helped her stand up, literally lifted up her neck. One endowed her with charm. Yes, we had it above. Maybe she lost that after fasting. Or maybe she was given additional charm for her to find favor in the eyes of Achashverosh at that moment. And the Echad, and the 3rd angel, Shematach es hasharvit, that stretched the scepter of the king towards her, because the protocol, the procedure is that if the king would grant you life, even though you broke the rule of coming to him without being called, not only would he lift the scepter, but you would have to touch it. And here again, the pshat, she was so weak from the fast, the Marsha adds that she was afraid that he's not going to lift the scepter. So the weakness and the fear paralyzed her. So she was unable to walk towards the Sharvit. So another miracle needed to happen, that the Sharvit needed to walk to her. And here we have a phenomenal correlation. But again, Bahashgacha Pratas, we are learning this Tafshem Pei Beis in the portion of Shemais between the Chazal that we learned together in Soita regarding the miracle of Bas Parai. We just want to add something we learned a few days ago regarding Basya. Basya, the name was given to her not by Parai, it was given to her by God. Medrash says that when she took in Moshe Rabbeinu, she went beyond herself because she knew that he was a Yiddish child. She was breaking the rule of her father, but she couldn't see a child drown. God called her, "You are my daughter." Just to know, Baska. But anyway, so what we learned in Soita, that her hand extended, so this is going to be connected to the miracle that happened over here. Now, Vekama, how much did it extend? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, that the stick, naturally, the sharvet, the scepter, was shtei amas, was 2 amas long. Hoya. And vihe'emidoy al shtei mesrei. I'm going to make my own suggested numbers in a moment. In other words, the miracle was 10. It extended 12, but it was already 2. So that's not. So there was an addition of 10. For Omni law, that it extended on 16. It means it extended an additional 14. For Omni law, that it became long Esrim Ba'arba, which means it extended 22. But Masnisa Tani, we learned in Abraisa al Shishim, it extended 60 yamas, right? That's an additional 58. And we find something similar when it comes again to the arm, to the amma of the daughter of Parai. When she extended it, and miraculously she was reaching something that was beyond her reach. Mamish, beyond many things in our lives, is completely beyond our reach. We're not speaking Bagashmi, is beyond our reach. The people were so indoctrinated to murder Jewish children. Now, she's the daughter of Parai. To take him, to save him, and to take him into the palace didn't make sense. And she went beyond, and God helped her. That at times God extends it. As it says, Shinei Rishoyim Shibarta, that the teeth of the wicked you broke. And on that expounds Reish Lakish, and he says, Al take Reshibarta, Ella Sherivafta, you extended it. And now she reminds us, as we learned in Pede Karaya, that when Oig Malach HaBashan picked up the mountain, whose bottom was just as wide and long as the entire camp of the Jewish people, and he lifted it over his head, wanting, God forbid, to just put it on top of all of the Jewish people. So the ants previously went into the mountain, and it weakened, it hollowed out the mountain. And the mountain, Pashat, descended on top of Oig Melech HaBashan's head. His head went into the bottom of the mountain, it rested on his shoulders. And he was trying to lift it, but that's the Reish Lakish, that Sherivafta, that his teeth extended, making it impossible for him to remove the mountain. And that is when Moshe Rabbeinu, right, high 10 amas, jumped for 10 amas, lift up his staff for 10 amas, and hit his ankle, and that's when we got him to fall, and ultimately he killed him. So Rabba Bar Oifren Mishum Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Eliezer is repeating that which he heard from his Rebbe, and the Rabbi Mirabbi, this is the final opinion, 200. So again, using my math, so that's an extension of 198. Now if you take 10, 14, 22, 58, and 198, you have the Gematria. Gematria is 6 in the morning. Shav, Tshuva. So if you like it, good. If you don't like it, I'm also good. So there's something about the extension that happened miraculously. So therefore, even though, like the Marsha says, she was paralyzed, unable to walk, she was able to touch the tip of the sharvet. Now, the king tells Esther, Malach Esther Hamalka. That's what it says in the Megillah. What is your request? At Chatzi Hamalchus. Even if you're going to ask me up until half of the kingdom, this say us, it shall be fulfilled. So first of all, at Chatzi Hamalchus. Don't tell that to your wife. You got to say, I'm in 100%. Chatzi Hamalchus v'lo kol hamalchus. And not only did he mean, I'll give you up to half, I'm not giving it all. He also meant to say, I'm not going to give you something that's going to break my kingdom. What will break his kingdom? He already sensed that she might come and say that she's Jewish. And he was afraid that she's going to ask him for him to allow to continue to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. And he knew that with the building of the Beis HaMikdash, that will give the Yidden the koyach, that he will no longer be the Moshel Bekippah. So that will break that level of malchus that he had. He was already alluding, don't ask me for that. And what does she tell the king? What did she ask the king? That Yaveh HaMelech v'Haman Ela Mishnah. That she wanted not only the Melech to come to a feast, to a banquet that she's preparing, but she also invited one other person, Haman. And now we have the big question. So Tan Rabbanan, Maro Aso Esther, what did Esther see? What was her rationale? Shezimna es Haman. Versteh nicht. And look how many answers you have over here. So we're going to go through the Braisa that quotes 10 answers. Answer number 1, Rabbi Eliezer. Right, Stam, Rabbi Eliezer Agadol. She was setting a trap for him. No, she planned out what she was going to do. As it says, right, their table becomes a trap. And as the Maharal says, that when people feel that they're very good, alles is good, the table is set, when people lose all of their anxiety, shpilkas, they're most vulnerable. A little bit of anxiety is good. So she was setting up a setting where Haman would feel, mamish, doesn't get better than this. That's when the person is the most vulnerable. Answer number 2, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, that mi base of the Lamda, she learned from her father's home. Before we go on, didn't we learn that she was an orphan? Not just an orphan, she never met her parents yet. So the commentators say mi base of the Lamda means she learned as a child from other children, from when she was young. What did she learn? It says, I'm recording here the pasuk in Mishli, that in Roy Ev Soinacha, that if your enemy is hungry, ha'achileu lechem, you give him bread. Now the vav of the v'goymer is essential, and the pasuk continues, Ki gecholam ata choita al roshai, because by feeding your enemy, you are really pouring hot coals on their head. She knew that when you feed your enemy, it gives you a power over your enemy. Rav Meir Omer, Kedei shelo yitzel eitzav v'yimroid. No, she was so afraid of Haman that she didn't want to keep him out of her sight. If she felt if she's going to make a feast together with Achashverosh at that time, who knows? Haman can then conspire to kill Achashverosh. If Haman were to kill Achashverosh, then you would not be able to overturn. Then Haman would become the greater king. Number 4, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kedei shelo yakiru ba shehi Yehudis. Different logic. No, she wanted it to be such a shock, out of the left field, in order to make sure that Haman doesn't even dream she's a Jewish woman. She invited him to the party. Gavaldik. No, it's also connected to setting a trap, but we're giving a detail to that. Rav Nechemya Omer. They were after a 3-day fast. Opposite Svarim. She wanted for the Yidden to daven. Like there's only God is going to help. Sometimes when you think God is going to help me, but someone else can help me, you don't daven as good. So when they saw that even Esther is inviting Haman, they thought at that moment, we cannot rely on her. Oh my God, she's inviting Haman. Only God can help. They're going to daven better. Rabbi Yossi Yomer, Kedei sheyei matzula b'chaleis, because she knew that at some point Haman is going to blunder. But you have to be with the person when they stumble. So she wanted to be with him to wait for the right moment. Rab Shimon ben Menashe Yomer, number 7, Ula yargish hamakim v'yasolon uneis. Rashi explains on the second line, on the top side of the Rashi side. In other words, when God is going to see that even Esther, to be able to save her people, she has to become so close to the most wicked person in the world. Hashem is going to say, this is so bad. Hashem is going to see the tragedy over here. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha Omer, Asbir loy panim kedei sheyarik hu v'hi. Wow. She wanted to make Achashverosh jealous. She wanted for Achashverosh to see that she's inviting Achashverosh and Haman. And during the party, she was asber loipanam. That means during the party, she was flirting with him. And 1 second, and she knew it's not stam. She was willing to die. She was willing to die. But Rashi reminds us that we had at the end of Tainus that the Romans, and this they took here from the Persians, that if people that were part of making a decree, if prior to carrying out that decree, one of them died, it was a sign. They were superstitious. This decree was a bad decree. So the goal was to get Haman killed. She knew if Haman was going to get killed, the whole decree will be bottled. But she was willing to give up her life. That's Rashi. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, answer number 9. Melech hafach fechan. Hafach fechan, when I was growing up, the expression in American politics was a flip-flopper. That means that Achashverosh said one thing, then he went back in it, then he went back in it. She knew she's going to get Haman. She knew that for a moment she's going to get the king angry, but she was afraid of one thing, that if Haman wouldn't be there, and the king would not vent his anger miyad, which is what happened, to hang him right away, he's going to want to kill Haman, then he's going to change his mind. So she wanted Haman to be there. And the answer number 10 in the Tana, that Amar Rebbe Gamliel, Adayin Srichon Anu L'Moidoi.
That helped. If Haman's there, therefore what?
Therefore, when she knew that she's going to get Achashverosh angry at Haman, but she's going to get Achashverosh to right away kill him. Before he's going to change his mind and kill Esther. Or not kill him. She's going to get Achashverosh to change his mind regarding the decree, and then he's going to change his mind again. It was a flip-flopper. You gotta seize the moment. Donate now. Press here. In other words, when someone is inspired, you got to do it right away.
They say strike is hot.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Oh, so now, says Ramliel, I still need to have the moidai. That's Rabbi Eliezer HaMoidai. He added something. That what? Kinatu ba melech, kinatu ba sorim. So the concept of kina, that she wanted to make Achashverosh jealous, that is good, but it's not enough. You know what she did? She wanted to make sure not only will Achashverosh become jealous because she was like very buddy-buddy with Haman, but she wanted for all the other ministers to also get jealous with him. Because like this, when Achashverosh, she knew she's going to chap a moment where Achashverosh will be upset at him, but Achashverosh needs to have the support of his chevra. And all of the ministers also became jealous. But from all the ministers, the only one she invited is Haman, so she did something to create jealousy and envy. Not only by the king, but by everyone. Now, that's Tanoim. Now let's add Rabba Omar. There's a rule. Lifnei shever go'oin. Right before destruction, there's pride. We mentioned this, when people at the end of life, the Mitla Rebbe Lahavdil, before he passed away, he was like fully healthy. There's always an up before a down. So she had so much emunah that he's going to have a downfall, so she made an up for him. So this rule should be applied. And Abaye and Rava, the Amri Tarvayu, quoting a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Bechumam, when they are hot, Ashis es mishteim. Rashi writes, he quotes that there's a precedent that destruction comes about when the wicked are feasting. During the heat of their feast, that is where God brings them a downfall. Now, there was so much emunah that this is going to happen, so she wanted to make sure that all of the preconditions of a downfall is set. All you need now is God's miracle for the downfall to happen. Now, we have now 12 reasons. So listen to this. This is a gavaldik. Ashkechei Rabba Baravua Lelio. Rabba Baravua found Eliyahu Navi. And he was learning the sugya. So you learn all of these opinions. You wonder, what did Esther really have in mind? Like, who's right? So Amar Lei Kaman Chazia Esther v'Avdahachi. What was her way of thinking? You know what Eliyahu told him? The concept of Elu ve'elu divrei likim chayim, that every single one of these reasons was part of her rationale. Kekulu tanoi ukekulu amaroi. Gavaldik. Now you know the meaning of take elu ve'elu is divrei likim chayim. She had all of that in mind. And then we're going back. It says in the Megila, Vayisaper lem Haman es kavod ashrei v'reiv banav. He was telling his family about the greatness and about his many children. So Kama Reiv Banav. People say, he had 10 sons. That zikr not. We'll see how many Banav he had. Amarav, he had Lamid. He had 30 sons. 10 of them died. 10 of them were hung. Not the 10 that were hung died. Another 10. It's good to know. And Va'asara and 10 were punished that Mechazan and Alapsachim, they became so poor that they became beggars for bread door to door. A shout out to my Yenikol over here, Yaakov, Amachai, that's beautiful. The Rabban and Amri, Oisan, Shemechazan and Alapsachim, I have that tradition. Some of his sons became beggars, but they weren't 10. Shivim Havia. He was married to many women. 70 sons, aside of the other 20. How do you know that? Because it says in Shmuel, Seveim, that they are satiated, Belechem Niskaru, and then they needed to hire themselves out with bread. So who is that referring to? To the fall of the sons of Haman. And the Chazal tell us, don't read only Seveim, but also Shivim, that there were 70 that were very wealthy. They were the sons of Haman, and then they needed to become bread beggars. Rami Barabba Omar, that Kulan Masayim Ushmoina Havu. He had 208 sons. Shenemer, as it says, V'roiv Banav. In 1 second, you have to know you have to calculate. So Rabbi Chaim is jumping. How V'roiv is not 208. Roiv is, but not V'roiv. So Frek the Gemara V'roiv V'gematrim, Masayim V'arbe, it's 214. In other words, there's another 6. So don't take out the vav before the word. That's what's amazing. Don't take out the vav before, because you can answer. The vav before is only to link it, right? No, take out the vav in between the reish and the vase. It's a chaser. And I think the chiddush, there's a lot of that we don't know. What I see is that the vav before is also part of the word here for gematrias. You don't make a gematria from the shoydish. You make a gematria from what's written. Now, it says, Balayla, we are now beginning the miracle part of the Megillah. Our minig is we start reading it a little bit louder. And that night, Nadada Shnas HaMelech, the sleep of the king was disturbed. Says the Gemara Amarav Tanchoim, that Nafla lay Milsa Bedate. I'm sorry. Nadada Shna, I skipped a line. Nadada Shnas Malkoi Shel Oilam. It means, Melech, here's the Chazal, that Melech in the Megillah is an allusion to God Almighty. So on one hand, God's name is not written. On the other hand, Melech. And with many people that have a minig, that every column starts with the word Melech, because it's the Eibishter. That God, in other words, the concept that we have also in Parsha Shema is that Vayeda Elohim, or Vayishma, or we have Vayifgoit, the concept of remembering. God remembered, God never forgot, but in a revealed way, God was already disturbed with that which was going on. Rabbanan Amru, this and that nadadu el yoinim, and therefore nadadu tachtoinim. Rashi adds nadadu el yoinim means malachim. That the malachim, it's all connected, that God, so to say, woke up. Kigibar miyayin, as it says in Tehillim. And he got the malachim to start harassing him. And we're going to see details of that. Rava Amar Shnas HaMelech Achashverosh Mamash. It wasn't God. God was never sleeping. He didn't need to have the malachim. Even without malachim, there was a certain rational mind conversation that took place. And you don't need to have, so to say, outside influence to make you have it. What is that? So Gavaldik, what Rava says. That Nafla Milsa Bedate, this is what went into his head. How great is it? Rava knows exactly what was in the mind of Achashverosh. Omar, Man de Kaman de Zeminte Esther Lohaman. I mean, this was in between the two parties. He didn't, she got to him. But my queen invited me and Haman? Something is wrong.
This is during his sleep?
Yeah, this is when he was waking up. This is what he was thinking. Why couldn't he sleep properly?
Before the party?
No, this is in between the parties. So why did she, no, she invited before the party, but she already invited him. He knew that she invited him. So Dilma Shakli Lavi Dahu Gavra Lemiktelei, maybe she and he are conspiring to kill that man. That's always a euphemism. No, he concluded they're coming to kill me. It's a coup. Okay, so that's for sure. Once you make a decision. But they had a kasha. I don't have any chavedim that are going to save me. You can't do this without help. So Hadar Amar, then he said, don't I have any friends? Who is the one over here in America? Who loves me? They love me. Like no one loves me? Dahava Moidali, that will let me know they're for sure they're conspiring. But where are my friends? So Hadar Amar, so then he responded. He's having a whole back and forth in his mind. I know what happened. He says, Dilma, maybe Ika Inish to Avad Bitivusa. In the past, someone did me a favor. Someone saved, there was a conspiracy to kill me, and someone helped me, and v'loy parate, and I never repaid him goodness. So mishumachi, that's why mimna in shivilay megadoli. That's why people are hesitating to let me know, because there's always a risk factor. That means if you notify the king that there's a coup that's planned, if the coup succeeds, the guy that notified the king, achas dasai with the king, lohamis. So that's Gavaldik. So miyad, the moment he had that thought, and the Rava's emphasis is, it's not a miracle, you don't need a malach, it's a natural, rational conclusion. Miyad, the second to last line before the bottom of the Amid, he said, bring the record that records that which happened, and v'yiyu nikroyim, and they shall be read. Now, or they were read, and the melamed shenekroyim aleim. In other words, it doesn't say that they read. Koiden v'yiyu nikraim. So they were read by themselves. So you have different commentators over here. That the reader, as we'll see, a Shimshai, that's his name. Whether he was the writer, he was also the reader. He didn't want to read the story, so he kept on turning that page. So the page kept on turning back. So he was forced to read that story. And Vayemotzei Kosov, it was found written. So why doesn't it say Kosov? A writing was found. It was found written as mashma that it was written right then. So Melamed, Daf Tezayin, that not only was the reader trying to skip that page and there was a malach that was turning it back, but Sheshimshai, that's his name, guys, the top of Tezayin, Moichik, someone was erasing that story. And Gavriel Koisev. So Vayimotzei Kasuv Melashon Ha'oiva, it was being written or rewritten right then. It's always amazing that the real salvation of the Jewish people, even though the Machol, Sar HaGadol, comes through Gabriel. Al derech we have in Shabbos that after Mashiach will come, we tell Yitzchak Ke'ato Avinu, Dafka Gevura. And Taka, there was a tshuva involved, which was why we merited this Gola. Omar Avasi, Dorash Rab Shila Ish Kfar Tamarto, Uma Kosav, Uma Ksav Shalamato. That if you have a human script, in our case, that Shalaschus and Shal Yisrael Einoi Nibchag, that which is written to the schus of the Yidden cannot be erased. They tried, but it was unerasable. Ksav Shalamayla, that which God Almighty records of our schusim, Leikol will never be erased. Beautiful. And then, when he heard about what Mordechai did, and he found out that Loi Nasa Imai Davar, nothing was done to reward Mordechai. Omar Rava, that when Achashverosh was responding that way, he was already implying that he wants to really reward him. And Loi Mipnei Shoyehavim Es Mordechai. Achashverosh himself, this is all the hemshech of what we started today, he had like a jealousy with Haman now. The reason why he wanted to reward Mordechai more than what he would have wanted is because he wanted to shtech Haman. He wanted to balance out Haman. Haman is getting invited to the party. He couldn't take that. Ela mipnei shesoinim es Haman. Gewaldig. Now, when it says, Heichen loi, prepare for him, this is going back that Haman then entered the king to inform the king that he prepared for Mordechai that eitz gavoya chamisham ama. Heichen loi. So Tanabi learned, loi heichen, he prepared it for himself. And the Turei Yevon writes, what it means is that when we want to know at what point of the story did God already decide that he's going to hang Haman on it even before him making it. So it's not that he made it and at that time there was a Zahav Amina that something negative could have happened. And then Hashem reverted it from the beginning. It was already decreed that eitz is made for Haman himself. And then Achashverosh tells Haman, who thought that all of the reward is for him. So he gave that whole list of what the king should do, including there's a medrash that says he told him to put on the crown. And Achashverosh says, no, that not. But everything else, va'asechein, it says L'Mordechai HaYehudi. Now Haman was shocked. So when it couldn't be Mordechai. So when he said Mordechai, he didn't say L'Mordechai HaYehudi. The king says, do that to Mordechai. So Amalei, so he asked him, Manu Mordechai, which Mordechai? Amalei, no, HaYehudi, the Mordechai Yehudi. Amalei, Tuva Mordechai Ika B'Yudoi. Many Yidden are called Mordechai. Right, Yaakov? Mordechai. Hastu. So Amalei, no, Hayosh V'Shara Melech. In other words, Haman couldn't swallow it. So the king had a, like, Barachel Bitcha Ktana for them to get to the Mordechai. So Amalei, so right away Haman says, oh, for him? Sagilei, Bechad Diskarta, Inami Bechad Nahara. Give him a town. Diskarta is the town. Give him a river. These are places where people would collect taxes. Bechal, the way taxes were collected then, not like today, is that the government will tell a person, you are achroi to collect tax from that town or from that river, people that pass. And the government tells that person, the king tells that person, I want from this area 10,000. The person pays the king 10,000. Then they become the tax collector. And most of them were the shoim. And they collected as much as they wanted. You used to buy the rights to collect taxes. Like this, the king didn't have a headache. He got what he wanted from that region. That's the way it worked. So give him that area and he'll become wealthier. So Amalei, so the king says, I like that idea. Do this and do that. Amalei, Hanami Avlei, good. It's good gesagt. And so not only are we giving him a village and a river to collect tax, but Gamkein al tapel dover mikol asher dibarto. Don't omit anything of what you said with that whole kibbut. And Vayika Haman asalavush. So Haman had no option. He took the garment, the esasus, and the horse. And Azalani he went. These details are fantastic. Ashkechei, he found Mordechai, the Yasve Rabbanan Kamei. Mordechai was sitting and learning. Can you imagine after fasting 72 hours? They say up as the mind opens up after a certain point. No, whatever it is, Mordechai sitz learned, and what were they learning? So what did we learn yesterday or 2 days ago? That the 3-day fast day was 14, 15, and 16 of Nisan. What happens on the 16th day of Nisan? You bring a carbon oimer. Now, v'neshalma param sifosenu, the Beis Hamikdash is not in existence. So there's an inyan dafka on the 16th day of Nisan to learn about the carbon oimer. which is a korban mincha, from which you took a kmitza. So Mordechai was teaching the Chevra Hilchas Kmitza. Umachvelahu, he was demonstrating the laws of Kmitza. As we will learn together in Menachos, exactly the avoided that is done to flour offerings to the Rabbanan. Kiv and the Chazye Mordechai, when Mordechai saw that what? The Apik Likivlei, that he sees in the distance, Haman is coming towards him. Vesuse miyached biyodei, noch with the horse. Now, coming with the horse means they're coming to pick me up. Mordechai had felt this is not good news. So Mirsas, he was afraid. And the first thing that a Yid does when he's afraid, the Nefesh HaBahamis, the animal soul, you know what it does when it gets afraid? It protects itself. A tzaddik, what does it do when it gets afraid? Protects others. It's amazing. So right away he got afraid, and Amalu Rabbanan, he told the Rabbanan, his Talmidim over there, Hayadisha, this wicked person, Lemiktal Nafshi Kasi, is coming to kill me. So therefore, Zilu Mekame, go away, run away, Diloi Tichavu Begachaltai, for you not to be burnt with the skull. No, he knew if he's going to run away, Haman is going to catch him and everyone else. If he's going to stay there, Haman will stay focused on him. At least the other Chachamim will escape. Now, okay, so the Chachamim are running away. He put his demonstration down. He put the Kmitza down. And what do you think Mordechai did? Put on his talis. He started to daven. How great is that? He shot at that moment, this Atev Mordechai. He put on his talis, started to daven. Also, Haman comes. The Yosef Leila Kamayu, and he sat in front. Now, really, he was there to give honor to him. So he needed to be machabed him. So he needed to wait for him to finish davening. V'oirich means he needed to extend his wait at the Salik Mordechai until he finishes davening. Now, even though Mordechai told his Talmidim, go run away, you can just imagine. Imagine that Rebbe is in trouble, and he tells the Hasidim to run away. Mistama, not one person left. They all stayed there to be with him. So Haman had with whom to talk. So Amar Lohu, you see that? He told his Talmidim, B'mai askisu, what were you learning? Like he was bored, like he's waiting for Mordechai to finish davening. So Amrulay, so they tell Haman, Bisman Shabeis HaMikdash Kayam, Man Demenadev Mincha, whoever brings a Mincha, Maisi, Mali, Kumsei de Sulta, brings only one fistful of flour on the altar, Umes and God atones for them. So Amar Lohu, so Haman says indeed, Asa, Mali, Kumsa, Kimcha, Ditchu, that you're one Koimetz, not the Gashmis, the learning, the Dachi, and it pushed away, it overpowered, Asara Alfe Kikre Kaspa, the 10,000 talents of silver, Didi, that I had offered for the treasury of Achashverosh. Now there's an amazing Tosfos. Tosfos here, down at the middle of the Gemara. Why did Hitaka offer that amount? Why did he offer it? So we learned before that God was a Higman of Full Amaka, that Be'echad Ba'adar Mashmim Al Ashkalim. So Tosfos makes a cheshbon that a generation of Yidden, a generation meaning 600,000 Yidden, that live, this is the cheshbon, 50 years by giving the Chatzi Shekel, because you only start giving it when you're 20, the whole generation together will give a total of 10 talents. It was the reason why he offered that amount was to counter the total amount of a generational giving of the half a shekel. Look inside Tosfos. V'dochi asara alfi kikri kaspa shomaiti, says Tosfos, I heard that shasara alfi kikr kasev comes out oilin chatzi shekel l'chol echad ve'echad mi Yisrael shahoyu sheish meyes elaf kishiyotzam mitzrayim. And again, the cheshbon is going to be times 25, I'm sorry, times 25. That means times 50. Times 50 because...
5 is the 50.
Very good. So times, exactly. 50 chatz shekel, which is 50, presuming that every Yid gives it in the lifetime 50 times. So it turns out to be 25 times 600,000 is 15 million. Shkalim, and 50 million shkalim is exactly this aseres. So Haman was thinking to himself, I offered the exact amount. So it's equal, it's balanced. Why did you win? Because Yidden on top of that give a kemitza.
What is Tosfos saying, the doik v'tishkach?
Make the cheshbon. But doik v'tishkach means mach the cheshbon, and you'll find that it's correct. Always, but doik v'tishkach, it's good, I'm asking you, but doik v'tishkach, be medayik, and you'll find it. So when you make a mathematics, when you learn Agadah, Sometimes you'll be medayik and you're not going to find it. Sometimes the Rebbes make gematrias that when you're medayik, when you make the real number, stimmt nicht. Machst du immer koilel und koilel, you start adding stuff. Here, when it's exact, v'doy petishkach. Also yidus. Okay, Amar lei. So Mordechai finishes davening. He heard that Haman brought up the fact that he offered from his pocket this tremendous amount of silver to the king. So back to the fact that he was his eved. So Amar lei. So Mordechai tells Haman, not Haman, Russia. Mordechai thinks he's getting killed now. So that's it. There's no need for formalities. Russia eved shekana nechasim, a slave that is in possession of things. Eved lemi, to whom does the slave belong? And therefore, b'derech mamela unechasim lemi, the money that you offer to Achashverosh is legally my money. Okay, he had no answer. Amar lei, Haman tells Mordechai, kum. Levoish hanei money, get dressed in these garments. These are the garments of the king. V'rachov haisusa, and go right on this king. The boyalach malka, so wills the king. Amalei lo yachilna, I can't do that. Ada ailina lebeibani, until I go into the bathhouse. Yeah, after a 3-day fast, he was not grooming himself at all. He wasn't bathed. He didn't have a haircut. And the eshkol lemezai, I have to cut my hair. If not, it's not proper. The lav urach Allah, it's not correct. It's not derech eretz ishtamushay, to wear, to use. But money de malkeh, hachi in my state. Now, Esther knew that which was going on. This was gavaldik. So when she found out about this, beruach hakodesh, you know what she did with her wisdom? She made sure that not a single bathhouse attendant and / barber will be available. Which would mean that Haman now has to become his attendant in the bath, and Haman, as we'll see, was for 22 years a barber. He needed to go back to his old profession. So Shadra Esther sent. Va'asterinu, she detained. Asartinu, she put him to jail. She detained. L'kulu b'nei bani, all of the bathhouse attendants. And ul'kulu umane, and all of the barbers. So therefore, Aile Ihu means Haman. Lebnei Bani, Haman needed to enter the bathhouse. Va'ascheni bathed Mordechai. Va'azal va'ais izuzim ebeisei. And then he brought a scissors from his house. And v'kashakal bei mazia. And he took, and he took his haircut with Haman. And bahadi the kashakal, and while Mordechai is sitting getting a haircut from Haman, ingad v'isnach, he felt weak and he gave a krechts. Haman began to feel his downfall. Amar lei, so Mordechai tells him, I can still see this conversation. Amai kom misnachas, why are you vos krechtze? Amar lei, so he says that Gavra da hava choshev leila malka, mikulu rav revenohi, the one that the king made more choshev than all of the other noble people. Hashta lishavye balonei, now you made me into a bathhouse attendant and vesapor and into a barber. So Amar lei, so Mordechai tells him, Rasha, Velav Sapor, are you not the barber of the village of Kartsum? Hayisa, and indeed we learned in a brayso Tana that Haman Sapor shall kfar Kartsum hoya for Esrim v'shtayim shana for 22 years. And you're going back to your roots. You're going back to your humble roots. Basar deshaklinu lemazia. After you took a haircut,
Rabbi,
yes.
Didn't we once learn you shouldn't get a haircut from a non-Jew because you were always afraid that they might kill you?
There's two kashas here. Number one is you're not allowed to take a haircut from a non-Jew, and number two that you're not allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed. We just said this happened on the 16th, so they're both addressed. Number one, regarding the non-Jew, the reason why you're not allowed to take a haircut from a non-Jew is because he might kill you. And being that Haman was there to do the king's bidding, Haman would have a mirsas of killing Mordechai. And regarding the fact that he took a haircut on Chol HaMoed, so from Mikan, that if a person, let's say, is in jail, and they were unable to take a haircut out of Pesach, the first opportunity, we learned this together in the Mishnah, but that's also the halacha, then they can take it on Chol HaMoed. Because of the avelus and mourning and fasting of Mordechai, he was not focused on grooming, so it's like someone who was released from jail. Weiter. So Basar de Shaklino Lamazaya, after you took a haircut, Lavshino Lamane, and by the way, just today you can take a haircut by a goy if there's mirsas. Today in America, at least so far, a goy would have fear to kill a Jew. And He did not say to honor the king, just to wear the king's garments. In other words, if let's go in Hasidus, that mitzvahs are Hashem's levushim, we should be machabed. No, it's just doing a mitzvah. A Hasidic Yid goes to the mikvah. That's from this. You go to the mikvah before you put on God's garment. Bidiyuk. Mitagartel. Lavshinu lemanei. So now he puts on the king's garments. And Amalei, this is Haman to Mordechai, so he's wearing the garments. Now, Sak, go up and Verachav, and go ride on the horse. Did you ever go on a horse? You need the koyach to get up on the horse. So Amalei, so Mordechai tells Haman that lo yachilna, ich kenish. Don't forget, Mordechai did not break his fast. He took a bath, got a haircut, because the kachisha cheloi, my koyach is weakened, me tanisa, from the days that I am fasting. So now, what happens? Gachin, Haman needs to bend over. Haman became the step, and Mordechai steps on his back, and V'salik, and he jumps on the horse. And not only that, when Haman is stepping on his back, he gives him a kick. Kisalik, when Mordechai, thank you. I'm already at the Adal Yoda. Thank you for these corrections. When Mordechai is on Haman's back, stepping on Haman, Mordechai kicks Haman. Kisalik boidbe. Amalei. So Haman now is becoming a big scholar. You kick Haman enough, he begins to remember. So doesn't it say, B'nafoyle vecha al tismach? Once he saw his downfall. But if you're kicking me, Amalei. So they're having a pilpul. So Mordechai tells Haman, "Oh, Hanemili be Yisrael, Avol biditchu ksiv va'ata al b'meisemoi sidrech, that you will trample on their high places." Now, how do we put this together? We just also had now that Malachi Asharis wanted to say Shira, and Adoi B'Shir says that Maisa Yodei Tvoy Mayam, and you're coming and saying Halal and Shira. Okay, the kid said there's Mitzrayim and then there's Haman Harasha. He deserved it to rejoice when he's having a downfall. And Vayikra Lefanav. Kocho Yeyosel Ish. Asher HaMelech Chafetz Bi Karoi. So he's making these announcements. Says the Gemara, Ki Havanokid Vazal B'Shvilo Debei Haman. Haman needed to walk him through Shushan Abira. And he, the Groise Knacker, he lived in June Street. He lived in the Chasheva streets. So he was walking, Haman was walking Mordechai on his block. And when he walked by his house, Chazisei Berate, his daughter saw this. Now, why did she see? So the Kama, because the Kaima Igra, because she was on the roof. So when she's on the roof, she looked down and she saw. What did she see? Savra, she thought, you only see what you can imagine. She couldn't imagine that Haman is leading Mordechai. It must have been the opposite. That Hai Derachav, who's on the horse, Avua, her father. By the Maske Kame, who's walking before, who's leading, must be Mordechai. So what did she do? Shakla tzitza, the Beis HaKisei, she had a chamber pot over there on the roof. And v'shadisa yaresha davon, she threw it on the head of her father, Haman. Dali Einai.
We learned in school it was a garbage can.
Because it was a chamber pot. It wasn't a garbage can, it was real garbage. So Dali Einai, so he lifted his eyes. You're looking from the top, you can't see the faces. And don't forget that he was wearing, Mordechai is the Chayid. That also makes sense. A Yid goes with a Labavich, you would say, with a fedora, a Tashtraimel, with somehow. He was wearing the king's garments. Even though he wasn't wearing the crown, for Stace, he was wearing the Mordechai for the first time in his life, Goyish hat. That's why it must have been Haman. So Haman lifted up his eyes. And Vechazos, when she saw the avuahu, that she threw the excrement on her father, nafla me'igra la'ara, she fell down. Whether she threw herself down, and no difference, or she fell down, and vames, and she died. Now it fits. Now it says Vayoshav Mordechai al Shana Melech, right afterwards, it says that Mordechai returned, and Vishtei Vaited, and Vahaman Nitchav El Beisai Avel v'chafurish. So Amar Absheshes, when Mordechai went back to the Shara Melech, it's a remez that even though this happened, it wasn't yet the time to break your fast. We learned this in Tainus. And by the way, even when the rain's in the middle of a fasting, remember what we learned? You got to finish the fast. That he returned means sheshav l'sakei l'tanisai. He went back to his fasting. And v'hama nitchaf al beisai avel. What's avel? Now you get it. Without this, you don't get to. Why is he in mourning? Chafurish. Chafurish literally means his head was covered with garbage. So Avel al bitoi v'chafuroi al she'iroloi, on that we just mentioned that his head was covered with the contents of a chamber pot. Vayisaper haman lezeres ishtoi ulachol oyhavav. Now, so it says ulachol oyhavav, and then the pasuk continues that vayomer uloi chachamav v'zeres ishtoi. It's not consistent. It should have says vayomer uloi oyhavav v'zeres ishtoi. We are calling those who were friends of Haman here oyhavav, and then in the same verse chachamav. So kodol oyhavav, kodol chachamav. Be consistent. So Amar Rabbi Yechanan, well, they were oyhavav, and they said now something with a lot of chachma. And as Chazal tell us that yesh toira bagoyim al tamin, chachma bagoyim tamin. They said something wise. Kol ha'omer davar dvar chachma afilu u'umas ha'olam is taka called a chacham. And now they were telling Haman that you are in trouble. And that's mamish. So they told him, Im mizera Yehudim Mordechai mit der ganze Trupp. Amrulei. What they really were telling him, Anocha detail, Mishar Shvatim Kasi. Look how the Goyim understand this. If Mordechai is a descendant from any of the Shvatim other than Yehuda, Binyamin, and Ephraim, over here we'll see, Ephraim and Menashe, then Yochleslei, then you still have a chance for you to win this struggle. Ve'im Yeshevet Yehuda, or Binyamin, or Ephraim, or Menashe, lo Yochleslei. And how did they know that? They knew it from Torah. That's it. His hands will be so strong that his enemies will be running away and he'll chop them by their neck. Enoch means the other. The other is Binyamin, right? Ephraim and Menashe. Lifnei Ephraim and Binyamin Menashe. Oider means to arouse, to be ma'oider, that they have the koyach to be ma'oider, the gevura. And then they told him, Ki nafal tipal lefanav of you will undoubtedly fall in front of Mordechai. Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. Why nafal tipal? So Amrulai, they told Haman, Umazu, this nation, the Eden, we are, and sometimes we are Meshul Afar. Other times we are Meshul Echavim. So make up your mind. Sometimes we're like the dust, sometimes we're compared to the stars. Which means, Kishahem Yordim Ad Afar. When we have a downfall, it's terrible. It's a double downfall. And when we have an aliyah, we have a double aliyah. Mamish this week's Torah Oir, that you have both Hashem tells Yaakov Avinu a double lashon to descend, and there's a double lashon of ascent. Okay. What's the vayavilu? And they rushed. So Melamed shehiviu bebahala, Rashi says. No, Haman still had some of this shmutz on his head. And the rushing means that he went to the party without fully cleaning out his hair. You can understand the psychological place that he was in. And then, what does Esther say? That this person sold me and my nation. And then she added, Ki ein hatzar shave b'nezek hamelech. Tsar means the adversary. There's an oyev and there's a tsar. Someone who's making a tsar adversary. That the adversary is not concerned with the king's damage. What is she saying? Amra loi. One side, she told the king Achashverosh, Tsar zeh, this Haman, this adversary, he doesn't care what he is doing will affect you, the king. When Haman became jealous of Vashti, the Katla, he killed her. Now you go back a few daf ago, the Chachma of our Sanhedrin, that we didn't want to be the Dayanim. It's a lose-lose proposition. Now she reminded him, who was the one that gave you the eitzah to kill Vashti? He had jealousy of Vashti. Now you lost your wife. Now Vashti kana bididi. Now he is jealous of me. Now he wants to kill me. No, the king never knew that because he never knew until now that she's a Jewess. So why does it have to say twice? Whenever Achashverosh spoke to Esther in public, he never spoke to her directly. That is the procedure when a king speaks to anyone other than to nobility, you speak through a meturgaman. When she revealed that she's a Jewish woman, she gave details. And what did we discover, as we learned before? That she's related to Shaul HaMelech. That was from modesty. The moment he found out that she's nobility, he began to speak to her directly. Without the middle party. And Esther says, Ish, Tsar v'oyev Haman hara hazeh Amar Rabbi Lazar. Esther at that moment was speaking a truth. And you know, when she said Tsar and Oyev, what did we learn a few daf ago? They were both anti-Semites. Haman was much worse. Tsar was Achashverosh. And she began to point at Achashverosh that you're the Tsar and you're the Oyev. That wouldn't have been good. She began to point to Achashverosh. He was the adversary. And a malach came to save her, and he turned her hand that Haman Zolzain, he should be the Tsar and he should be the Oyev. The king got up in his anger and his rage. And then it says, the king returned from his palace garden. So Makish, we juxtapose his return, Shiva, to Lakima, to his rising up, meaning that normally when you're angry and you're trying not to react, so you go out for a stroll to calm down, he came back just as angry. But why? When he got up, he was filled with rage. His return was with the same amount of rage. Why? Another miracle happened. That's not written explicitly. The Azal, he went, the Idamolek. They were ministering angels that appeared like people. And they, you know what, they were in the garden in which he was strolling. And what were they doing? Bustani is a garden, an orchard. They were uprooting those trees. These kings, they had as a thing with their orchards. And so Achashverosh sees them, he says, my oiv dechayu, vastustu. What are you guys doing? Amrullah. So they tell the king, defagdinon Haman. Haman told us to uproot these trees. Pshi. So in other words, Haman is uprooting everything. He comes back into his house. Neufel is Beloshen Hoiver, not Nafal. Haman then was falling on Esther's bed. So fragtig about a Neufel in the past, a Neufel in the present, Nafal mi boyalei. Should have been he fell. Amar Abelazar Nochanes. Malamed Shabbat Amalach came v'hipila aleh, and he threw. He saw Haman landing on Esther. In other words, it looked to Achashverosh. He saw Haman assaulting his queen. And he says, Vai mi besa, vai mi butter. Wherever I go, this guy is in my house, he's assaulting the queen. Outside in my garden, he's assaulting my trees. While I am in the house. And indeed, at that moment, so says the Gemara, don't think that this Charvaina was a big tzaddik. Amar Abelazar, Af Charvaina was a Rasha. And not only that, he was part of the ones that were making, how did he know there was a tree? He wanted to make the tree, he was part of it to hang Mordechai, but Kiven Sharoshul in his Kaimu Atzasai, Meyad Barach. He right away switched sides. And that's the meaning where it says that Vayashlich Olav V'lo Yachmoil Miyodoi Beruach Yivrach. That means that people, that when there is a downfall of someone, even those who are assisting him also flee them, they abandon them. After, right, he was a hafachvachan. So she got him to kill Haman right away. And then his anger subsided, it calmed down. Now the word shechacha is written with two chafs. You could have written the same word with one chaf. Shtei shechichos halalu lama? Question mark. Answers the Gemara. That means that achas shel malkoi shel oilam va'achas shel Achashverosh. God Kaviyachol became calm only after Haman was dead. For Amri law, that the king then felt relieved. He closed the chapter, one for Esther and one for Vashti. It was when he hung Haman, he was taking revenge, not only because of what he was conspiring to do now, but he was angry by the fact that Haman killed Vashti. He just never knew it, or he never admitted it. And now this is what made him feel good. Weiter.
What was Hashem angry about?
Hashem was angry that there's such an anti-Semite in God's beautiful world. Others might have said God was not that happy with the Jewish people prior to the doing tshuva. Okay. Now we're going to have the concept of Maisi Ave Simul Labanim. It's not a stretch, but we're going to go back a couple of generations. And we're going to, now that we established Chevra, it's all a one big hemshech. That Mordechai, what did they tell him? Mizera Yehuda, Mizera Binyamin. we learned that Mordechai was from both. Let's go with the Pshatim, that maternally he was from Zerah Yehuda, and paternally he was Mizerah Binyamin. And let's follow the paternal lineage. He was a Benjaminite. So says the Gemara, now you understand the story in the Chumash. That when it says, we're going to be going between Vayigash and Vayechi. But let's go to Vayigash. That after Yosef revealed himself to his brothers, and L'chulam nasan le'ish chalifa smoilis, he gave every one of his brothers one change of clothing. But Ule Binyamin nasan, does it say Achiv? Achiv. Aside of that, Ule Binyamin nasan chamesh chalifos, he gave his brother Binyamin 5 change of clothing. Doesn't make sense, asks the Gemara. Efshir dovish and it's tired by Oisa Tzadik. What brought all of the tzar to Yosef Tzadik? Like Rashi tells us. It was because the father showed favoritism by giving Yosef Tzadik the Kseinas HaPasim. The brothers envied him. That ultimately led to the tzaris that he had. So Yosef Tzadik experienced how you should never show favoritism. So how can it be? It's favoritism is what provoked his brothers. Dafka Zayin Amud Beis. So Yekashel boy, should he stumble? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why is he giving Binyamin? Why is he showing more favoritism to one over the others? Right? Pasha Takasha. And the Omar Rava, part of the question, Bar Machasya, Omar Rav Chama, Bar Guria, in the name of Rav, that Bishvil Mishkal Shnei Seloyim Melas, because of 2 Seloyim weight of fine wool, that's the weight of the Kseinas HaPasim. Shehoisev Yaakov lo Yosef Mishar Echav. That is part of the reason why Nisgalgal Hadover, that is what led to one thing to the other. V'yardu Aviseinu L'Mitzrayim. So he's going now and he's repeating the same favoritism. Who gives the answer? Look how beautiful. The Amoyre Rabbi Binyamin. So Amar Rabbi Binyamin by Yefes. Remez. I hope I'm not losing some connection over here. See if everything is plugged in. That the Remez, Ramas Loi, that really there's a Remez over here. Sha'asad Bein Lotzeis Mimeno. That there's going to be a child that's going to be coming from Binyamin. Sheyetzim Elifni HaMelech, that's going to end up wearing Chamisha Levushe Malchus. Shinamar, as it says, Mordechai Yotze B'Levush Malchus, Tcheles, he was wearing a blue garment, right? V'chur, a white garment, Zov Gedoyla, which means a golden crown, V'tachris Butz, a robe of fine linen, and Ve'argoman. So that is, now I want to add something. In other words, that when Yosef gave Binyamin 5 garments, this is part of what caused, that empowered ultimately for Bnei Ban of Shel Binyamin to be gifted with those 5 garments of Malchus. Can I take it a step back? So maybe Yosef, Yaakov Avinu, who gave his son Yosef, the Kseinas Pasim, this is what caused Yosef to become the Mishnah Lamelech. Perhaps. And we expected for the Shvatim at this point to understand that there's something great. Now that they saw Yosef Taka became the king, which explained why Yaakov gave him those garments. So now they're not going to react with jealousy. That's the answer. Now that we're speaking about this, let's continue. That Vayipoil al Savrei Binyamin Achiv, that Yosef Atzadik fell on the necks, in plural. I want to say, how many necks did he have? And by the way, when we speak about a neck, we also learned, what did we learn? We learned that the Beis HaMikdash is not on the highest part. It's like on the shoulders. It's more than and we also learned that the Beis HaMikdash Bechalka Shel Binyamin Ze'ev Yitraf, how the Mizbeach is exactly in the territory, right, of Binyamin. And that's why there was no Yesoid on almost 2 sides completely. Okay, so he cried for that which he foresaw, which is the destruction of the 2 Batei Mikdashim, and that fits now where it says, Binyamin Bacha al Tzavarav. So what was Bechalka Shel Yosef? Shiloi. Bacha al Mishkan Shiloi she'asid li es Bechalka Shel Yosef v'asid li Charev. And as the Rebbe, many people are familiar with the Sikha, asks, why didn't each one cry for their own Churban if they had the Ruach HaKodesh? And the answer is, if it's about your own Churban, don't cry, do something. Crying at times is the worst thing you can do. You have a release, you feel better, as garnish katan. If I see something that there's nothing I can do to help, cry. So for someone else's Churban, takavein, should hurt you, Avas Yisrael. For your own Churban, don't cry, do. That what the pasuk says, Kipi amadaber aleichem, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar lahem. What Yosef HaTzadik was really telling them, that you know that there's nothing in my heart against my brother Binyamin, because he was the only brother. Gewaldig. Then he went on to say, Kipi hamadaber aleichem taiches the Gemara, Kipi kein libi. I'm speaking my truth. Then it says, that were noisim mituv Mitzrayim. What is the Tuv Mitzrayim? Fragt die Gemara, my Tuv Mitzrayim. Amar Rabbi Binyamin by Yefes. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Sholach lo yayin yoshan. Yosef HaTzadik sent with Binyamin aged wine. Why? Shedas zekenim noichaim enu. Because it warms up the elderly. Now we're going, when it says in Parshas Vayechi, as Rashi explains, that after the passing of Yaakov Avinu, after the absence of Yaakov Avinu, that Yosef HaTzadik would always dine with his family. Really, it was in the schus of Yaakov Avinu. Now that Yaakov was not there, the brothers were no longer eating on his table. That means there was a certain interaction that used to be that was no longer. That's why they suspected that Yosef is going to now take revenge. So, right? And they asked for Megila for what they did by selling him. That when they came again and they bowed down to him and they implored with him, that when a fox has his hour, not the lion, the king, even only a fox, it's his hour, Sagidle bow down to him. In other words, Yosef HaTzadik is not Yehuda. Yosef HaTzadik, compared to, we'll see in a moment, compared to whom is considered the second in command, not the Melech, the king of the kings over here. Nevertheless, at this time, bow down to him. The Gemara interrupts. 1 second. Why is Yosef HaTzadik only considered a fox? In other words, if you compare Yosef to his father, then it makes sense. The father is the lion, he's the fox. If this statement is connected to this moment, then he should not be called a fox. He's only a fox. How are you making him lesser than his brothers? Why is he only called a fox? How is he inferior? Guys, when it says before in the beginning of Vayechi that Vayishtachu Yisrael al Roish Hamita. Now really, we know the Shechina was there, but still Yaakov Avinu bowed down towards Yosef. That is where Amar Rabbi Yom Bar Yefes, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Ta'ala be'itnei Sagidlei. Yaakov is the king. Yaakov is the father. Nevertheless, since it was the time for Yosef to be the ruler, so you have to honor even the one who's kaviyachol, not the lion, but only the fox. Then it says, coming back to Vayechi, Vayanchem oisam vaydaber al libam, he comforted them and he spoke on their hearts. Omar Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, Omar Rabbi Elazar melamed, Omar lahem devarim shemiskablam al alev. That means that he spoke to them rational words. It made sense for them to believe him, that he has nothing in his heart. And what did he tell them? Uma asara neiros, lo yuchlu lachabos neir echad. All 10 of you, now really it's not 10, but the 10, part of the 10 is the Rebbeinu Shalom. You could not extinguish me. Neir echad, I'm only one candle. Hey, yochoy lachabos asara neiros. How do you think I would be able to harm you in any way, shape, or form? Now there's a beautiful hemshech. So now that we are calling the Jewish people neiros and light, now listen to the connection. Now we're going back to the Megillah. And when it says, La Yehudim ha'yso oida v'simcha v'sasan v'kar, Amar Rav Yehuda oira zu toira. You get it? V'chein hu oimer kiner mitzvah v'toira oir. That's why they were neiros. In other words, really, I'm going back. What Yosef HaTzadik was telling them, you know why you were unable to harm me? Because Yosef HaTzadik learned Torah. He was connected to the light of God. And Yosef HaTzadik says, you know that I know that you guys are also sitting and learning, that you're learning Torah, that you're fulfilling the mitzvahs, whatever the mitzvahs they had then. And because of that, one cannot harm the other. We are light. Simcha refers to Yom Tov. Sosoin goes on Bris Milah. Right, that whole medrash that we learned, I think it was in Brachas, that when David HaMelech went to the bathhouse, he became sad because there was no mitzvahs. Not a tefillin, not talis, not a mezuzah, but then when he saw the Bris Milah, that's the mitzvah that always is with us. In other words, the mitzvah is not only to cut off the foreskin. If that would be only on that action, then the mitzvah wouldn't stay with you, but it's a mitzvah not to be an adul. and a mitzvah to be a mohul. That's a mitzvah nimsheches, and that brought about a certain amount of sus because it's always with us. And v'yikar, what's our greatest glory and honor? That goes to tefillin. V'cheinu oimen v'ro kol ami ha'aretz kishem Hashem nikra racha v'yaru mimekah. And v'tanya Rabbi Eliezer Gadol oimer elu tefillin sheb b'roish. That's our glory. Kisipur the Alter Rebbe, not the tefillin on top of your head, but the tefillin that's in your head. That's when the goyim will really fear us. It says the Gemara Vayter, when we read the 10 sons of Haman, the first one ve'eis parshan dasa, right? The last one is ve'eis vaisasa. Aseres b'nei Haman, Amar Rav Ado de min Yafoi, that Aseres b'nei Haman, the reading of the 10 names of the sons of Haman. We learned today there were many more, but the 10 that were hung. And the subsequent word, which is Aseres, right? It says, after the names, it says Aseres b'nei Haman, the word Aseres, Tzarech lemimrinu, they have to be said, b'neshima achas, in one breath. So first of all, Tosfos here, it's a little bit under. Tosfos says, Nira d'haina lechatchila, avabel di'evet loy. Number two, just to know that the reason why there's a minig now that Amma brings down that there are 4 psukim in which everyone says together, one of them is the 10 children of Haman. Why does everyone have to say it on their own? That's the topic. Because there's something called Shemei HaKohanim. There's an instrument called Shemei HaKohanim. Question is, whenever you have a detail that these words have to be said b'neshima achas, does the Shemei HaKohanim go for that detail? Or Shemei HaKohanim is, it's as if you said it. But the neshima achas aspect doesn't confer over to the listener.
So the listeners have to hold their breath?
So that's why when the listeners say it, not hold their breath, they have to say it in one breath.
To say it themselves.
They have to say it themselves, b'neshima achas. And that's why you have a great choices. I want to just say that, for people that read the Megila, that one of the hardest ivra is on the Aseres b'nei Haman. And if you didn't prepare prior, most people with the lungs that we have, either you're going to say it b'neshima achas, or you're going to read the words properly. You're not going to have both unless you're prepared. Because it takes time to read the words. And how long can you hold your breath? So if you want to be yoitzer, this shita that Shemei HaKohanim doesn't go on this as neshima achas. And even though b'di'evet it's good, but you want to do it lechatchila, before Purim, read the words a couple of times to get the ivra correct. And my tama, why do we have to read it in neshima achas? Because kula bahadi hadodi nafku nishmasayu, they all died exactly at the same moment. And for the greater the miracle. It's gavaldik. When goyim are coming to kill us, when they are our enemies and they die in one time, you see the Yad Hashem. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, that the vav, the 10th in the Seder that is recorded is Vaisasa. So the vav of Vaisasa, tzarich lemimtecha b'zekifa. You have to elongate it. It has to be a big vav. Why? Kimayradia de librois, like the poles, Rashi says, that were used by the boatmen in the river Librois. When you have certain rivers, you don't use an oar. Better, you have a pole because the river is not that deep. So when you stick the pole on the ground and you push the ground, it propels you forward. So you have this big pole. Make a big pole. Why should you have such a big pole? My tama, because kulu b'chad zekifa is the kifu shleima. Not only did they die at the same time, they were all hung on the same pole. So the vav of Vaisasa, which is in the bottom of the column, has to be long to remember that detail of the miracle. Amar Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, Dorash Rab Shilish Kvar Timrata, or Timrasa, that kol hashiros kulam, all of the shiros that are written in Tanakh, Nichtavos Oriach al Gabal Levena. Rashi says Oriach means a half a brick. Everyone, Oriach is a half a brick and Levena is a brick. We're going to have this in Bava Basra in the beginning. Rashi says that there is the black letters on the Torah, and then you have the white spaces in between. Not the white around the letters. And it's amazing that when it comes to the Shira, like Shiras Az Yashir, the Levena, the whole brick, refers to the white empty space in between. There is a lot more white space in between the half a bricks, which is where the letters are written, and the other detail is just like when you lay bricks. You don't lay one on top of the other, but you put like 2 over here and then a third on the top. So like Shiras Az Yashir is exactly written that way. So you have part of the Shira here, part of the Shira there, and then you have the middle column, and you have something underneath it, and there's many meanings behind it. Now, by the way, that's not Shiras Hazinu, we'll get in a moment. we're focusing now on Aseres B'nai Haman. It's only on 2 columns. It's on 2 sides. There isn't this third column in between. Aside of the 10 sons of Haman and Umalchei Canaan, when we have the record of the 31 kings that were killed under the leadership of Yeshua, over there, the half brick is on top of the half brick. The half little columns is on each sides, and the center is completely empty. Why? My Tama, that symbolizes that the wicked, when they fall, should not have anything to grab on. They should fall and never get back up. My Tama, the question is, what about Hazinu? So the Marsha says that Hazinu is also written as the Soriach al-Gabariach al-Leven, because since we speak about Harninu Goyim Amoy, Shiras Hazinu is the sheet of the Jewish people. How the world is anti-Semitic until the coming of Mashiach, and at the end, God is going to take vengeance, and we also want for the Goyim never to have a tkima. They should never be able to lift up their heads and to hate a Jew from that moment forever. So what did we accomplish? We added 10 minutes, and we're still a lot to go, but Chavra, it's phenomenal. So Mirz Hashem, next daf, we're gonna get ahead as much as we could. Don't think that Perek Sheni has smaller dafim, but these big dafim is taka something very special and unique to be continued.